haven't asked you about this. This is about a week old, but Joe Montana was at the Super Bowl this week, and someone asked him about Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo, and he was real candid. He said he's been talking to players on the team, and he knows that Trey's not ready, and they got to stick with Jimmy until they get someone who can really replace him, because Jimmy can take him to the Super Bowl. Wow. And then there were pictures of him hanging out with Debo, like legitimately with players at the Super Bowl this week, which makes you feel like, man, maybe he heard something. What do you think of this? What's your first reaction?
First, I thought it was unnecessary for him to say it, honestly. Joe Montana is out here going out promoting whatever thing he promotes during Super Bowl week. It's like his one big media appearance in a year. Right. And I understand he's the second greatest player in the history of the 49ers franchise.
He's promoting his documentary, right? That's what he's promoting. He's promoting.
I just thought it was a little bit unnecessary. You know, I'm not saying what he said was right or wrong, because the only person that knows that is him. I don't know that. And so I can't comment on the validity of his comments. I just felt like it was unnecessary for him to drop such a bombshell in February, because the reality of the situation is, no matter where Trey Lance was, just, you know, based on everything, I think that this offseason is going to dictate more on whether Trey Lance is ready or not, more than anything. I don't think any of us can say that at this point in February. So I thought it was they
didn't prepare him to play last year, right? They kept Jimmy. They didn't give a quarterback competition. They structured the offense around Jimmy. Now the whole idea is you'll get all the reps with the first team. The offense will be catered to you, and now we'll know. No.
Yeah. Look, again, Joe Montana is entitled to his opinion. Absolutely. I can't disagree or agree with it, because he's stating it more as a fact rather than an opinion.
Let's stick with that.
My opinion.
Let's stick with that, because what he said is he's talked to people on the team, players on the team, and that's what takes us. It's not like I watched 2.5 games. I have an opinion. I'm Joe Montana. It's like, this is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
And let's say that's true. Let's say he talked to players and players talked to him in confidence, and he, you know, spilled the beans. Why does Jimmy have this level of support that, say, Jared Goff never had in LA?
Yeah, I mean, I have
it's kind of a phenomenon, isn't it?
I've never seen information about this.
Average quarterback.
I think there's just a respect for the way Jimmy Garoppolo has gone about doing his business and the professionalism he's conducted himself with. And the fact that he's maintained that professionalism throughout that career. I mean, it's kind of similar to why, you know, Lions fans still have an attachment to Matthew Stafford, even though he's a far greater player. For 13 years, Matthew Stafford never complained about the fact that the Lions didn't give him a run game, or the fact that the Lions, you know, didn't support him and Calvin Johnson with much help other than the two of them, or the fact that the Lions had major turnover in their coaching staff. And, you know, people say that's just being a professional, and I understand that argument of it, but the reality of the situation is a lot of guys in the NFL do not conduct themselves professionally when they're dealt a bad hand, you know.
Look at Kyler right now in Arizona. Like, I don't know how he's conducting himself, but that's all the stuff right now is like, oh, how is he being professional, right? From his own organization.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And Jimmy Garoppolo, no matter what the media said about him, I mean, he's probably I'm part to blame. I think you're even more to blame, but he's probably the single most criticized 8-0 quarterback in the history of the NFL in 2019. Like, every single game, it was like, oh my God, they're winning, but they're winning with this quarterback. And then even this year when they were winning,
Clark, remember?
Right. Yeah. And I'm not saying his play doesn't deserve that, because his play has been deserving of critique, right? He played poorly versus Carolina, for example, in their 2019 run, and they won that game 51 to what? 7-13, 51-13. So it's all part and parcel of the course. But I think people respect the fact that, you know, he's the quarterback of a franchise, and he just continues to be the same. He doesn't get too high in losses. He doesn't say anything in wins or losses. I mean, he wins and losses, he says the same thing. The week after, he says the same thing. Asked about every defense, he says they're fast and they're flying around. They got a really good group there. How many times have we heard that answer from him? So I think that's where people have respect for him. The Trey Lance aspect of this from Joe Montana, honestly, my opinion on his quote unquote fact is that it was unnecessary for him to say this. Even if he knew it, why do you have to drop this on February? Like,
why is he so down on Lance? I mean, mid-season he said, "Oh, they should have drafted Mac Jones," after like 2 months, and now they're like, "God, what is it?" It seems to me that there's probably an element of Joe seeing Steve Young and Trey Lance and just being like, I don't like this whole dynamic between these quarterbacks. I'm on the veteran side. I feel like that's got to be part of it, right?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't think so. I don't think, because the Steve Young situation is totally different from Garoppolo. Like, come on, Montana won 3 Super Bowls.
I'm just talking play style. Like the way Trey Lance plays the position is the way Steve played the position early on. It's not.
But does Jimmy play the way Joe Montana played?
That's where I keep coming back to. It's like, Joe, how could you possibly identify with Jimmy?
So,
but I don't know.
I you know what I literally think? I think he just talks to people on the team. He's Joe Montana, and I think he just hears things. And I think the unfortunate thing is, I don't think it's necessarily just because you're hearing you have to say it, but he continues to say it to the media.
Last thing, though, before we move on. So let's assume that what he said about players, certain players thinking he's not ready. What we would say is like, well, he was running scout team all year. Like, what? You're going to have to see him actually now that he has the whole thing catered to him. He has no one in his way, everything set up for him to succeed. How does he do? If he doesn't do well, then I guess he wasn't ready. But that's the thing is like, do you take the leap of faith with Trey Lance now and get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo? Or do you keep Jimmy Garoppolo just as the backup, just in case? I don't think you can do that either. I think you have to take the leap of faith.
You know, Grant, the other thing aspect to this might be he might not be ready to be, you know, a franchise quarterback and, you know, do what, you know, Stafford did yesterday, where you're on your 4th string tight end, you're playing 11 personnel all game with Ben Skoranek, who, in my opinion, is not an NFL receiver. He's playing 25 snaps in the second half, and you're still able to go down and win a game in the Super Bowl. He might not be ready to do that. He might not be ready to be like a top 15 quarterback, but he might be ready to be a complementary piece of this football team the way Jimmy Garoppolo was. Like, that's where it's hard for me to see Trey Lance really failing. Because, like, okay, if you tell me next year Trent Williams gets hurt early and Debo gets hurt early and George Kittle, knock on wood, that none of this happens, but this happens, then sure, Trey Lance might not be ready to take them to the playoffs in that situation. But if you tell me that Ayuk's healthy and Debo's healthy and George Kittle's healthy and Raheem Mostert maybe comes back and Elijah Mitchell's healthy and Trent Williams is ready to go and this defense is once again loaded up to play like this, like, what does he really have to do different from like what he's capable of doing right now today? Like, he can be a top 16 quarterback in the NFL, like the 16th or 17th best quarterback, which is right around where Garoppolo is for the fraction of the cost, and you can still win games. So if you think he's not ready to do that, then I have major question marks, because to me, that's not a big ask of the 3rd overall pick in the draft.
Agree. And I think his athleticism and ability to throw the ball in more areas of the field I would be shocked if the Niners' yards per carry didn't go up. The running game should improve. Yeah. And then I have a quiz for you before we move on. Where did the Niners rank in the NFL this year in pass attempts per game?
30th?
31st.
Oh,
31st.
Okay, yeah.
So, I mean, you're not asking him to throw very much. It's like, just hand off most of the time, throw less than every other team except for Seattle, essentially, and be a complimentary player, as you put it. I think that's where people keep coming back to with Jimmy. It's like, he's the quarterback. He's the leader. He's a complimentary player. And that's all you're asking from Trey Lance. If you were to get Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, it'd be a different situation.
This is not a quarterback-driven team. I think that's where this is not a team where they want to drop the quarterback 40 times a game and they want him to drop back and, you know, go through a full progression and throw the ball to the backside, or, you know, go through a full progression and, you know, throw a 17-yard out route. They want the quarterback to be able to play off play action, make good decisions, and then complete on 3rd and 5 a little option route to Juwan Jennings. You know, be able to be a part of this offense. Because to be totally honest, if they wanted a quarterback to drop back, I don't think they would have drafted Trey Lance, because he didn't drop back a lot in college. He played in an offense where he was heavy play action, a lot of schemed up throws off play action. He was a
the guys
big
who
part of the
back
run game.
Fields and Mac Jones.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.